Because one excuse to be.
Yeah. But yes.
Your son in it. So I took your son in it last week. We had a meeting.
You did?
When you moved them, they take it on. Yeah. I ran out of kids in the first. Yeah. My grandma.
Taking money.
Look at this route, the date. Commercial ownership date.
It's for furniture. Oh.
Get your advantage of that. We had a good bank.
Well, we were. Oh, man. Okay, well, wait, are we? You know, it's a short meeting.
Yeah, one agenda change. It's going, what, flip the exec sessions. Don and Carrie are at a conference in Boston on effective AI with that technology. Kim Winter about Zoom, maybe Kim Davis, Kim was coming back to state board of nursing meeting, I think. Well, too good. Oh, the state board of nursing is the weather. Will that be? Kim Bison. We got Andrew here, we don't need him. Brian should be over here looking at this for the faculty. Some. Do it.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the March Manhattan Area Technical College Board of Directors meeting. Call to order.
Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to flip flop into the exec session at the end of the meeting. Do finance first and then personnel.
Sounds good. That would remind me again when we get there. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Did everybody have an opportunity to read through that? And is there any comments? I have one question on the expenditures. It's not that, I just wanted to clarify. There's a payment to Central Bank. It's a Amigo lease payment.
Yes,
Is that truly a lease? Or it's just a,
like we used to own this.
With this, but
Any other questions or comments? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Move approval of the consent agenda.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Agenda passes. General agenda,
We'll hold up that, we send it until Brian gets here, to start in July.
okay. Interim board clerk introduction. Or is that? Oh, I'm sorry, I scrolled down too far. BHE and expenses update.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So Chanel, there's actually, let's just do this. You guys see that spreadsheet?
Sir.
Okay. All right. So on the reporting lines for this one, we're looking at the pay application 15, which was paid for through the last round in the sum of $638,000. So if you look at this, you can see that contingency, roll up here. So our owner contingency, if you remember, we moved 163K out of BHS contingency into the Manhattan Tech one. That 517 that BHS still has available here does not include ours. So the total contingency is actually still those two together. You can still see we're in really good shape there, as well as allowances. Even at the time we processed this pay app, there wasn't a whole lot that had been ran through. Now that we're getting to the tail end of the project and starting a lot of finish work, you'll start to see this one wrap down in the upcoming months pretty quickly as those are starting to go out. So for right now, moving forward, we're going to start seeing the buyout of the interior and exterior signage. That's actually a combination of Thomas, Shirley, and Zarnecki. The epoxy flooring, some of the Datacom stuff is starting to be bought out for the sub for Parsons. This week or toward the tail end of that last week, this should be wrapping up the railings and the gates, plywood blocking, a lot of the drywall should be finished. I bet it is finished now. Andrew, is it finished?
Mostly for like 90%.
Cool. And then painting going in right behind that. The aluminum siding starting to go on. Some of the framing in the lobby. Let's see. Did either the tail end of last week or early this week, Evergy should be getting their permanent cable set up and ran. So we're actually set up with the permanent electricity over there for their main run. And Alternative Air is starting to do fixtures in the bathrooms. So the majority of this pay app was a lot of the finishing up with the drywall and a lot of the plywood stuff, as well as a lot of the exterior weather barriers, sealants, things of that nature. There wasn't really anything. Brett, did you see this? I sent this one out to you a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you had any notes or questions on this one, but it was a pretty simple one.
Yeah, no, I didn't know anything.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, really the at top level here, the contingencies as well as the allowances are still both in really good shape. Schedule's going great. Everything's on time. They're getting things wrapped up and we're getting to the tail end here. A little bit later when we talk about the furniture proposal, we'll talk about the contingency a little bit more. Any questions on this?
Is there heat on in the building?
So as of last Friday, it was still just on temporary heat and they hadn't done a startup on the actual units yet. So they just have that big external propane unit that they're piping in temp heat.
They're still doing drywall sanding, so they won't turn those on until they don't.
They're ready to paint. Is there any supply chain issues. I know we've got a lot of problems with some of these final electrical gear things coming in for larger projects.
No, they haven't they haven't brought up any issues on any finishing up things, and honestly, and that's why the HVAC equipment specifically and some of the electrical they purchased quite a while ago. So no, I haven't heard anything to that, any issues to finish up. Have you, Andrew?
No, the boardroom, our biggest concern was the boardroom, the conference room, audio system and stuff there. They didn't give us any concerns. They said they haven't had any supply chain issues, so everything was good.
Okay.
Brad, I just have a suggestion. Several months ago, we were getting that report in the packet in advance so that we could review it with some of the other attachments. I was wondering, for whatever reason, the last couple of months, in there. I mean, it's been shared with the group, but not in the packet. I just wonder if we could get back to putting that in the packet to take a look at it in advance.
You've been more due to the fact that this poor lady and the previous interim, we were kind of getting them buried.
Yeah, and I think at one time the thought process was that we didn't really necessarily want that spreadsheet to go out publicly, but honestly, I don't see why. So yeah, we can definitely get that in the packet.
I don't know if there's anything on there proprietary that's more.
No, I think we were thinking more
Very
specifically.
similar.
Yeah, more specifically to the pay application itself, which has all the subcontractor pricing and all of those things. We'll keep that out, but the generalized spreadsheet can go in.
Concerned Banker is requesting it, so I think that's probably has merit.
It's legit.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions on the payout? Glad to hear your schedule and everything's going good, Josh. That's great to hear.
I think our project is the envy of a lot of people who are trying to get stuff built. All right, we'll get back to you shortly, Josh. Your eminence.
How's it going?
The math teacher's here.
The important one, right? So really quick, right now the faculty are just kind of trying to keep our head above water after a break. One of the things that we have been looking at is using a different platform for some of our classes that would make it a lot easier for students to take classes. Cengage is what we're looking at. I know, like for me, I use Pearson, but with using Cengage, students would only pay a one-time fee and they'd have access to every course. And so I could use 3 books and it wouldn't cost them any more money. And that's kind of what I'm really liking about it is with statistics. Statistics is kind of that, I tell them it's not really a math class. It's more of like a word problems and, applying it to real life. Well, it seems like books, I can never find one book that will satisfy everything I like. So I think this could be really helpful. Plus, a lot of our issues with our students is either they don't fill their financial aid out correctly and they're waiting for money for their access codes and they get behind in their classes. This would allow students to be able to get into the class right away, have access. They would have to do a 14-day free trials. The instructor could keep going. And I think that would be a lot easier. Now I know with that being said, like for me, I'm going to have 7 courses. I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to have to redo and stuff like that. But again, as I told a lot of the faculty, a lot of work in the front end, but in the back end, it makes it so much easier. And if it's good for the student, the faculty are going to do it probably. So I thought I'd give you that heads up because I know it's not free, but at the same time, it can be kind of dispersed amongst the students. You have something you want to say? I'd like you to say something. The other thing that I want to bring up is for the for Jeff Pishney. He couldn't make it today, but he wanted to kind of talk about his program. And they actually got accredited with the automotive service excellence. And he said the process takes him and Alex approximately 6 months to complete. And it's done every 5 years. So at least now with being done, they're done for 5 years. So in addition, they have transitioned all the information to a digital form ahead of the request for this to occur. So they saw it's going to have to go more digital. So they've been working on that, kind of like, like we're doing Cengage. I think they use Cengage because Alex was in, yeah, they do use Cengage. So again, that's like something that I think a lot of us are going to have to go into. There are 3 levels of accreditation, and they're at the highest level, which means that their program is taught at a master level. And with that being said, then it requires all students to not only obtain the information, but they have to demonstrate it on campus. And I know that Jeff said this was really big for the program. And I think this has been said in here before, but in that program, I think we're the only one that where everybody has a bachelor's that teaches it. And I think that's pretty impressive when you're talking about the programs. So kudos to that program. And then I guess I said one final thing. Kudos to Chris again, because we just started our new semester for the GED program, and I had 18 students in there. That was just in class, not counting the students from Neosho, and then 1 from Johnson County and 1 from Oklahoma. So we had one student that liked it so much that she sent the Zoom link, but she asked me first to a lady in Oklahoma. So not only helping Kansas, we're helping Oklahoma.
In an unofficial capacity, because the state does not authorize the use of grant funds to other states. Thank you.
Well, he's going to both of them. Actually, he's going to theirs and he's going to ours as well. But he said he liked our instruction better. So, but again, we got a big group again, and we've already had how many graduates so far?
14, I think, for the year.
So it's looking good.
Back on your, the first topic there,
Cengage.
is that something you're gonna bring back later as far as cost, or how does that?
We're investigating it and he'll work through the teams.
I don't think we've gotten a quote yet. I think Kara's still waiting on
We've
it.
got unofficial numbers we haven't waiting on the paper.
It doesn't replace our learning management system, Canvas, integrate with it. Most of our kids we typically take Cengage after they log into our regular system. We're exploring all the options. It's got some things that really sound good. We just want to make sure it's real.
Mhm. It's basically like when I taught the high school, we went from McGraw-Hill to, to another company. So you're still using the same platform. One of the things that I liked is because with using Pearson, the student has to be in the Canvas course to be able to access the book. Whereas like this semester, I've had 2 students that are wanting to, take the TEAS test. Well, then it's been a semester since they've taken math and they're worried they won't do good on the math. Whereas if they had that, then they could access the material for the TEAS test and they could look at all their options there. So it also worked for that as well. So there's definitely some bonuses, but again, we haven't committed to anything yet. It's just kind of looking at it. Any other questions? You get bored, my recitation class, 307C. Come on over.
Take a sandwich.
I will. Don't worry. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Supposed to wait till I get out of here. Thank you.
High school and adult ed update.
Sure. Well, I'll just continue on with Brian because he still saw my thunder with that.
Congratulations.
So, oh, yeah, thanks. So, yeah, this last week we had our last orientation of this semester. We have one more that will run into the summer months. But we brought in 27 more ESL students. A lot from the Hispanic community this time. We're with a few students who kind of dropped out and some other things that are going. We're still right at about 98, 99 active ESL students, which is phenomenal. GED, we did bring in, I believe, 17 new students. So yes, we had several students in class. Trying to think if there's any, that's it on adult ed. High schools, we met our goal that I told you all about last month, where all the MOUs, I met with all the superintendents before spring break, got all the MOUs out to all of them in their hands, reviewed. All of them are good. 383 requested an additional financial information, going back to kind of what we talked about last fall. We submitted something over spring break. Eric, Mr. Reed did wanted to sit down with me one-on-one. I sat down with him, and our understanding of we cannot currently provide what he is asking for. He's asking for a full breakdown of what high school students are individually bringing in and how they affect each little thing of our expenses. Right now, everything just kind of comes all together. And that's hard because we're a small school, we have to pull all of our resources together. So he said he would be open to a change in the percent, but he has to have that concrete information. I said I understood, and I offered my request was if I could come back and if we could return to the original agreement of 75-25 for this next school year, and with the understanding that Kara and I and Josh will work together to work on how to improve budgeting for concurrent classes in the high school and tracking those things. And then going back in the fall, if there is a need to change the percent with all the superintendents and request that change if it's necessary. Eric was very amenable to this, and I sent him back the MOU after Jim's approval, and it will be going to their next board meeting for approval. There's no other issues. I've notified all the other school districts for consistency. Do 75-25 for that. They were on the board. I got a lot of thank yous, a lot of we're getting back on track. Let's keep going, and a few more conversations of what can we do next. So that's really encouraging. So yeah, hopefully by end of April, after they all go through their different board approvals, I'll have all the agreements done for next year. We're still working on some of the classes, just trying to figure out what classes we can run at the high schools and which classes can be here, and trying to help offset some of those costs. And I think that's.
We're playing the long game. You want to go into that?
Oh, sure. So a lot of this too is also kind of give and take a little bit. So by going back to this, obviously gives us the time to come up and say, okay, that's the percentage. Eric also mentioned that this would be a big step to also do the adult ed mill levy in the fall, and he would work with us to put together that proposal, and he could make that recommendation to the board. I'm not sure if it was before or after the election, but he said he was willing to work with me to come up with some of the language and just the understanding. So that would free up roughly about $118,000, $120,000 that could be reallocated back to the college.
And basically what he's wanting to see in terms of the finances is how he would see it. And of course, at the K-12 level, they have different revenue streams, but they're isolated. They don't get to mix and blend like we do. So what we're hoping is this poor lady and that poor fella taking the time to put things into that format so we can show Eric and the other superintendents, okay, if this was your organization, this is how you would have the revenue, and here's how you would spend it. We're still going to show a shortage, but then they're going to be more open to, okay, now we see you have a shortage. So it's really doing their translation of the Bible. That's okay. The other key thing he mentioned, again, Chris and I were talking through all this, is playing the long game. The other thing Eric mentioned is what we want in terms of the new building.
Sure. So once the new building is up, Eric was very much on board with figuring out how to do transportation morning and afternoon so that we're busing students from the high school over here for whichever classes for all the programs over there. So that's a good sign of he's already thinking about the transportation pieces of that. And now Eric and I can figure out what smoothing looks like, what additional faculty needs we have, and truly setting up all the high schools. So it's really just those like 2 or 3 intro classes of each program, but then students are coming over here in the college environment, working with the instructors and going from there.
So realizing that we hopefully can get our long game objectives met, we'll give it for now.
So glad to hear all this.
Oh my gosh, awesome collaboration and
Good
listening.
vision.
Yeah.
Great work. Thank you, guys.
Great work.
Other news, last part for me, I guess, at 4:30 today, got, notice from Rob Hart at Fort Riley that our MOU is fully approved. It's currently under legal, going through processing, and then we will do all the signatures, and we're out at Fort Riley.
So hopefully this fall with courses in 2 programs.
Sure, so as soon as the paperwork's signed, I'll submit for the additional location for HLC accreditation. That's obviously gonna take some time. We already have business, Jason York and Ed from our construction program on board to start offering a couple classes on post this fall. We have to stay under that 50% threshold. But while we're doing that, we're gonna build out our welding lab out there. Jacob Bowley, our new welding instructor. So hopefully, realistically, January will be boots on the ground. We're going full speed. But there's a potential in October we could have some classes just to start and make sure that pieces are working and start. Excitement. Rob explained that if you're on 10 spots, we're gonna have 20 or 30 guys on those 10 spots.
So back on the mission thing, maybe this is a question for you, Karen. How difficult is it going to be to gather that data and put it in a format that is consistent with the way Aaron wants to see it? Because by and large, it's the biggest high school that we have to deal with. And so if it's going to be acceptable to him, it's probably going to be acceptable to everybody else. But yeah, I guess that's my question. How difficult is that going to be?
I think it's possible. I think it's just something we haven't really done in the past, and so going into a new year.
There's a lot going through some of our contracts too, and just being able to put inside this document that this company goes by headcount. So we have every single high school student. This company is known by that full-time enrollment. So that's kind of like 4 high school students, college students. And it's narrowing those pieces down instead of just trying to put all of it together and say, this one student is going to cost us this stuff.
Because the cost from our vendors,
Right.
some of it's based on FTEs and based on that calculation. There. The other thing, back to your question, almost each high school in our area we serve has different state weighting. So we'll come up with this for 383. It would be a little different than the other districts because they have the weighting system. It does get a little more complex for us. It's not our apples to apples, but trying to give it to them.
So if you have difficulty, what I would do is ask Eric to send in his people over to work with you to get it sorted out. Then you have visibility. Somebody who goes like he wants. This is a little tough, but here's how we have to do it.
Yep, I offered up at some point this semester back here, and I just go over and chat.
But I mean, have to. Tricks.
And the last thing from Chris and a lot of people, a lot of staff faculty today was day one of.
Oh, day one of the career, sorry. So yeah, today was healthcare, 38 employers. We filled up the commons, we filled out the lower EPD area for auto collision. And by my unofficial clicker, about 103 students and public folks have come through today. It was fantastic. Riley County High School had a small group here, which was the first time high school would come down. So I think that's an avenue. Poke a little bit more in the future and see if they can get some juniors and seniors down and visit with some players. Overall, I think everyone was great. It's a great team. I really appreciate everybody pitching in because it's a lot to put together.
Tomorrow we have all the other trades.
Tomorrow's all the other trades. We have about 50, I think it's 51 employers ready to come in. So it's going to be a little crazy, but that one's 2 to 4. So Harry got to see it firsthand today. What did you think, Harry?
I was very impressed, actually. When I was there, I was really surprised at the number of students and others who were stopping at each one of the booths. Actually, I really was blown away with it by the interest from all the healthcare entities. So I think it was very well done.
Thank you.
I just think it's interesting that all these hospitals and other things related to healthcare are at our thing. And they all have candy or cookies to hand out. It's like,
Couples are.
job security.
That's right.
Yeah, what was the best handout? Cause I gotta probably make that.
That's right. I gotta get
May
one.
not go very far.
I gotta kick the one place that had chocolate chip cookies and sugar. I was like,
Oh, there, it's that one, and then the one that was handing out the full-size candy bars, you gotta beat that. It's like going through the neighborhoods, man.
I figured the local dental association paid them to bring.
That's
it.
right.
Seriously.
Good deal, yeah. That's awesome.
It's what, and what's really fun is the way all the staff and others kick in on this. I mean, they're really having fun with it. That just rubs off to everybody, sure. Yeah, great people.
Oh, and Eagle Radio Communications, we're out today and they'll be out tomorrow too, just doing on-site radio and broadcasting. And they did a lot of good interviews. Brian Howe with Wamego Health Center gave a wonderful interview, and Clay County also was a
Good,
part of
good to
it.
see
They were able to
Great.
jump on the radio. That was really
Great,
cool.
yeah. It was a nice email to give, but I said, yeah, Chris will be, let her take it, she'll be great. Good.
Now for our monthly accreditation sermon.
We should have had Chris go last.
You know, I know.
It's a big shoes to fill. So maybe I move them.
So criterion 2, and Kim will be jumping on here to assist me. I'm gonna give kind of an overview and then let her jump in. Criterion 2 is one of those that we're gonna spend more time with our cheat sheet with you when it's closer to time on that, because criterion 2 relates to integrity of the institution with demonstration of ethical and responsible conduct. So to know, that you've approved the mission, well, not you, but whatever board did approve it, it was approved by a board or mission and vision. We do audits, and if there's a problem with the audit, what action is taken, or even when there's not a problem, we're looking at how do we improve the monitoring reports and other reports that we share. Because again, it's accountable, being transparent, but again, we're probably gonna spend some more time with you when we get closer to that about the meaning in those reports and some of the data analysis, because that's what the HLC team is going to be asking you when they meet with you. They want to know that we support academic freedom with our faculty. We do. They're going to want to know that we are committed to providing appropriate support services and providing the resources for that. So it's pretty standard stuff, but I would say it's this criterion 2 and 5 in particular are where they're going to be asking you some questions about your role and that you understand what the college is doing. Criterion 5 gets into strategic plan of where everything's going and effectiveness. So let me pause there and see what Kim wants to add. All the details.
Well, you gave a great overview of it. There are 5 different components or subcomponents to criterion 2. Just going over what Jim said, making sure that we're behaving ethically and fairly towards our students, towards our governing board administration, making sure that we're maintaining a lot of those boundaries that we're supposed to, that you all are approving programs. Jim and whoever he designates is kind of doing the day-to-day running, and that we're being honest with all of our stakeholders, and we're giving them all the information that they deserve to make their decisions that they need to make. I think that's kind of the majority of it without sitting down and going through each one.
Again, part of it is accountability, transparency, but again, transparency does not mean full disclosure. Some things we can't discuss. Again, this is pretty, like I said, this one and 5 are really concerning your role, that you know your role, you take action to perform your role. And you keep an eye on the rest of us to make sure we don't commit to your roles. Okay. But not as exciting as Chris's. But we kept it short.
Sorry.
No, you're good, Kim. Thanks. Any questions? now we get into bring back Josh, and we have Andrew here because the next three things are even more exciting. Back with us, Josh?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
So starting off on the first one here that we'll ask for some action on is, so our main core networking switches. So there's two switches that sit in our data center. So our campus has access switches all scattered around from one end to the other, but there's two main switches that those all funnel back into, and then those funnel out to the internet and to WTC and go through our firewalls. Those switches are nearing their end of life, and it's time to look at replacing those with new updated best security practices, newer hardware, newer warranty status, etc. It's a big ticket item. So per policy over 25,000, we went out to get some competitive bids. We did get three comparables. Out of those three, we actually liked the Arista Networks option the best. And ironically, they were also the least expensive. So it kind of worked out on both ends. As far as to fund this upgrade, if you remember, the state applied a one-time $250,000 cybersecurity funds for us that need to be expended by June 30. So we would look to utilize those dollars to pay for this and then do the upgrade over the summer here when we can afford a little bit of downtime on a Friday afternoon. With that, after there's any questions, we're looking for a motion to hopefully accept moving forward with Arista Networks as the selection there.
Josh, I have a question on the use of those funds. On a couple other boards I'm on, we always have to go through some process to prove the use of those funds actually meets the criteria for which the funds were authorized for expenditure. Do you have to do anything like that, or can you just declare?
Yeah. So
50s.
So Jim's actually been working on that, I believe. Jim, you want to chime in on that?
We have a little more latitude than a lot of agencies with that.
Yeah.
But this particular allocation that we have this year and it's not going to be into next year really is for what we think we need in terms of increasing, enhancing, improving our cybersecurity for the institution. Better equipment does that, so we're good.
I have no particular issue with that. I just wanted to make sure we were.
We do have a little more latitude than a lot of us.
So the funding being provided through the cybersecurity division or whatever, what's the, how easily accessed is that? What's the timing of that?
You already have it.
You already have it.
Got $250,000 for this fiscal year and the same amount is in the proposal for next year as well.
So it's already set aside.
Yeah, and we've been using it throughout this fiscal year for upgrades, renewals of security software, antivirus, things that fit into cybersecurity and increasing our security posture. And I mean, this is one of them. By upgrading these core switches, they'll have the latest and greatest security patches, updates, and things to help us kind of increase the security and keep our network secure. So there would be no debate whether these would fit under that type of spending.
In fact, in light of what happened at K-State and with the Justice Department in Topeka, we probably doubled the amount of budget.
Are there any ongoing costs associated with this in terms of maintenance agreements or service?
There are some things which before this funding, we would have to take out of our tech fee. We are not violating any of the regulations for this year and hopefully for next year, paying that out of this special fund. It actually gives us more ability to use other college dollars in other ways. But there's renewals on some of this. There's more training for people.
Josh, we're adding all of these three quotes together, correct? To 200,000.
No, so we're just recommending that those are just the three that were competitive bids, but we're actually only moving forward with the one from Arista. So the total on that one was $54,121.95. The other two were just competitive comparisons.
So what's this
Yeah, what's this, maybe we're asking the same question, is what's the Sanity Solutions? Cause to me, that's like 3 different options from one company.
Yeah, correct.
Correct, but for the you can't really go get so when they go out and get a bid for so these are 3 comparable types of hardware that all do the exact same job. So the policy doesn't say it has to be 3 separate vendors, it's comparable equipment. And in fact, when they go out and get a quote, say for Dell, Arista, etc., they lock in that quote. And then if we were going to go ask another vendor for the exact same quote from the same vendor, they have to release it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. So you're saying we couldn't go, and I don't even know if these companies provide these things, so bear with me through that, but like, you couldn't go to like Techniques or Ready Systems or say, hey, I want this equipment and provide me a bid. Because if they go to Arista, they're gonna say, no, we can't give you a bid.
Correct. So what I ran into in the past, because I used to try to do that with, and so basically, Sanity has this lock in, or they have a special resolution or whatever they call it with Arista on this particular equipment. So then let's say I go to CDW is another one I use. And if I ask them for that same quote for that same equipment, they'll reach out to Arista and Arista will say, well, we already have this resolved with Sanity.
Similar with Charles and Wilson, that, you know, we use them, but they go get quotes from different companies, different policies we need.
What I can tell you, if we're just worried about, I'm not worried about, but talking about Sanity providing the best pricing for this Arista option, is that just going out and looking at list pricing or pulling MSRP for CDW or some of the other competitors to Sanity, and then knowing as Sanity went rounds with us on how much that they beat Arista down on this pricing, it's good. It's really good. I have no worry that it's not a low cost, competitive cost on the Arista quote itself.
Have you used their brand of hardware on anything else in the past?
We haven't. They're really geared toward core switching, high-end data centers. They're not a knockoff. They've been around for over 20 years. We just haven't had any specific use for them until this time for some new core switches. And you know, we use a lot of Cisco and a lot of Dell, and Cisco would be a good option as well. But we're just as happy with the Aristas, and they beat them out significantly on pricing.
Is there a motion? Any other questions for Josh?
Move approval that we accept the proposal that has been put forth by Josh with regard to the Arista estimate proposal.
Seconded by John. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
There you go, Josh.
Thank you.
Thanks for your due diligence.
Now we're gonna talk about furniture.
Yeah, so apologies for the really long board packet because of this furniture package. So Andrew's going to help me with this because as you can see, furniture gets pretty complicated. So on this top spreadsheet, if you'll scroll down a little bit. Right here. So this spreadsheet is our best attempt at kind of a breakout for some comparison. So the RFP went out to try to gather bids for a proposal to furnish the entire ATC building. Submissions came back from John Marshall and KI, as well as a partnership with John Marshall and KI, and then the Scott Rice Furniture Company as well. So in your breakout there, the pricing shows the different options, the totals between them. The one we're wanting to recommend is RFP number 2, which is a combination of John Marshall and KI, with KI furnishing the classroom desks And for us, this one kind of took into consideration for fitting in and the aesthetics with our existing furniture, quality, also looking at the warranty coverages. They're the only one they offered some lifetime warranties on a lot of the products, as well as 12 plus years on some of the others. Andrew, turn it over to you to fill in some details there, and maybe we can wait for questions if I didn't miss anything, but that seemed like a mouthful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good coverage of those, of those specific RFPs, those 3 that came from them. If there's any specific questions or anything, I'm more than happy to go over that. The reason, yeah, like Josh said, so the reason we're recommending that one is the quality of the desks, the lifetime warranty. That was a new addition from KI in the last month. They went from 25 years to lifetime warranty on those desks, and they're doing the desks and the conference room tables. So that was a pretty big thing. They've also done some recent changes with some of their finishes that we were looking at that were an additional cost that no longer are. So that helped reduce some of the costs with that there too.
Were there some real issues with the low bid in terms of quality and?
There was the one from Scott Rice, who we have worked with before. They're no longer local. They used to have a local office. They have we removed that. They're just in Kansas City now. And their quote is, you know, $100,000 cheaper, $87,000 cheaper now at this point. There was a lot of ambiguity in their quote, specifically every line of their quote. If you look through the package, you can see it as the furniture is $300, $400, very, very round numbers, which is not anything I've seen anywhere else from any other furniture quote. They're very, very specific with their numbers. And there was also statements of, if you go with us and we order these things, numbers might go down. There was just a lot of unknown questions with that until we're locked in, and then maybe they don't go down, maybe, you know. So, and the desks that they put into their quote were not the ones that we had originally discussed. And so we would have to, if we did want to look at that, we would go back and adjust those desks to the correct ones, which then would increase their costs significantly to get a lot closer to the other prices to meet those same quality standards that the other companies give us.
I have a question. I might be misunderstanding when I look at this.
Sure.
But you've got 5 trash cans at $1,300 each?
Yes,
What
correct.
kind of trash cans are these?
They're nice trash cans. I realize.
I'll bet.
The reality of furniture that I've discovered with all this is to pay for that quality, for that longevity, to get those warranties and just the quality and work craftsmanship there, it costs a lot. I can show you the trash cans from the other ones. They're $300, but they're basically just a thin plastic thing with a metal cap on the top. Look very, you know, antiquated, dated. They aren't fitting kind of that look we're trying to move to, is kind of elevating the technical college and bring that new look here, and make it look more professional.
And also that building with those programs and the students, something that will hold up.
A lot of wear and tear.
Mhm. Yeah, again, those trash cans have, I think that one's at a 15-year warranty versus a 7 on the other ones. So those kind of things are why they pay more. And that company, Johnny Marshall, had already worked with me. The RFP they sent in before was actually a little bit more than that. And she brought up a table leg and said, hey, we're doing this one table leg on these office desks. If we go to the standard one versus this one, it'll save you $15,000. And the look didn't change anything. It was basically the same thing. It was just going from one manufacturer back to the original, and it saved $15,000. So they're looking out for that kind of stuff, trying to find those things that'll help us with those numbers. So
Do they have somebody here?
they don't as well either. No. The other local office that I was working with that just never got back to me with a quote was Office Spaces, Office Plus. And they've actually been bought by Scott Rice. So any quote I get from them is gonna be the same exact thing.
Heather, do you have experience with John Marshall and or KI?
I'm trying, like, I was looking for logos, and KI maybe sounds familiar, but John Marshall does not at all, so I don't.
We did use KI and John Marshall for the Commons furniture we just purchased. That they're the ones who did that for us as well. So we kind of,
Happy with it?
we are very happy, they're very attentive, they have dropped everything for us to come out and make sure everything got installed properly, if we're happy with it, if there's anything to change. Been very impressed with their professionalism and their ability to just to be available, so.
We've had positive student feedback about that furniture out there, so.
Does the overall purchase price, does it fit in the budget?
Well, yes.
Yes.
What? You go through puberty?
I was there with Jim's voice so high.
So,
What's that, Josh?
so if you have read the hopeful recommendation to entertain a motion for, our hope is to.
Obviously I did.
What's that?
I said, obviously I did.
So we pulled in BHS to talk about the remaining and where we're going to line up on the contingency dollars. They're actually comfortable funding the entire thing out of contingency with still plenty of room to offset any upcoming unforeseeable issues. However, what we were wanting to recommend is to use some of those contingency dollars to fund this furniture project, and then the remainder to not exceed 20% from other sources. So something like capital outlay, base operating grant, et cetera, from the state funding, donations, et cetera. So we'd like to use basically as much as is comfortably feasible out of the contingency money to still leave the project in a safe place, and then fund any remainder in excess of that out of one of our state funding sources.
I'm not looking at this with a bunch of are some of these bases like adjustable, or are they all fixed, or a combination?
It's a combination. The classroom tables are all electronically height adjustable.
Okay.
The office ones are not. So other than there is the administrator's office, which is different than the other ones, and that one is height adjustable.
Yes, it is.
They all have the ability to be added to, so if we had to make an accommodation or something of that.
Well,
nature.
I guess if that would be a way to maybe save some dollars up front, is to just make them all fixed. And maybe it's not, maybe it doesn't move the needle enough, I don't know.
It would move it some, it would move it probably about $10,000 or $11,000 total. It's just the ones that are there. Because initially we had done them all height adjustable just for the sake of flexibility. And
Yeah, it's nice to
Yeah.
have, for sure.
Spin your gun on
So
it.
really what it comes down to in terms of using up this contingencies, you have to have a real comfort level that there's not gonna be something else that's gonna need to eat that up at a later date that's not been identified yet. And I would assume that those discussions have been taking place with BHS and no surprises.
I was in the room with them when we were going through this, and that's why I suggested to Josh to bring it to you, saying it can come out of contingency. But let's leave a wiggle room if something comes up, where we cover up to 20% of the cost out of other funds, just in case something happens. BHS was comfortable, we could say, yes, we paid all our contingency, but you and I both know something could happen. So that's why I suggested that buffer. Plus, this way, if you approve it, we have a chance to get it ordered, to get it here in time. But we probably won't get the bill until the new fiscal year. So we have the other appropriations already put into the state to help cover us if we need it. We have the money, but it's, like I said, I'm trying to build that buffer up just in case.
So I'm reading, we would pull like 310,000 plus or minus from contingency, which that number was 5 something, so you're left with approximately $250,000 still in contingency.
Correct. Correct.
We're even a bigger buffer than BHS. BHS is comfortable taking it all. I'd like to have that buffer just in case.
Can we back into like the lead times for, I know furniture has a pretty substantial lead time, we can maybe like order it at the last second, so it gives as much time as possible to, I mean, not having an install date of, August, but July and back into that, maybe we're already beyond.
We're pushed up against we're starting to get pushed up against the wall because this is when all the other schools order their furniture as well. So that's kind of where we still have plenty of time. The longest lead time for these right now, for some of this furniture to get it all together, is 15 weeks. So we're still okay with that, but it is gonna get it busy as far as scheduling installers and all that other sort of stuff, because all the schools start. So
During normal, that means, I would agree with you, but it seems nowadays like with supply chains, if something could go wrong, it'll come.
Oh, yeah.
So. If the dollars are there and if it's gonna get tackled.
And on the contingency side, we did have that exact conversation with BHS and went through the budget because we had the exact same concerns and like Jim said, they are quite confident that getting on the tail end of this thing, if there are any big contingency things that come up toward the end, they'll probably fall under owner betterment anyway, to where it'd be some, something that we would maybe want to look at doing, but not an emergency type contingency spend. And if that's the case and we used it up furnishing the building, then whatever those owner betterment pieces are would just have to wait.
paper recycled.
I would think that even if you order down, you have the assurance that you can utilize this funding source to pay for it, but if something's come to players such as if you get rolled over into a new fiscal year and you have the capital outlay fund or something like that, you could use those for, I don't remember telling you, remind me what the timing was, when you get the payment from the city, the annual payment.
We already have their first payment.
You did get that.
Yeah, so the next one will be next January.
So there's other.
We've got different options.
How the 20% has that been, other than, has it been more specifically identified? Like, do we know we can get that from all the sources?
We'll have a capital outlay in fiscal year for sure. So. In the current budget, which our stuff again is the same in both houses, so there's no conflicts. Maybe the amount we got this year for capital outlay. Next cycle.
Real quick before we entertain a motion, I just say appreciate you guys breaking it down as well as you guys did, and all the pretty colors helps.
Trying to put it either way.
No, it just shows that you guys, did your due diligence on it. You gotta pay for quality sometimes, and you got some nice notes there about what you didn't like about Scott Rice and.
I've worked with them before. When they had a local office, they were recommended to me by somebody who worked here, had somebody that worked there. I've been kind of put on the back burner for a lot of things to be completely honest about it with it moves, and we'll discuss something, we'll have an email chain. I won't hear from them for multiple weeks, and then I'll get something and it'll be wrong. And so it's just been kind of frustrating trying to get to the right point. So. It wasn't.
You're the one that got so confused for now.
Her person was working with that. She went,
Hey, we give her a softball, like for the first, report
Like
package.
some of the state region packets we get, their board meetings.
I don't remember what happened. She was so fast. Is
there a motion?
Sorry, I have one more discussion question. Did we talk about like state contract stuff last time? Or if they had access to some of that stuff? It's a little late for this now.
These ones are all through state contracting.
Okay,
We made sure that it went through all that. I don't know, there's multiple that they've used, but they got Omnia and there's some tips in there just depending on the company, the company, but it is all state contracted.
I would make a motion that we approve as outlined.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dave seconds. All in favor to approve the furniture purchase, say aye.
Aye.
Then I.
John, that's the side of the trash can.
I'm gonna start
He's trying to figure out how many of those he wants to get. That isn't what I thought when I started getting into furniture. I'll show you the trash cans. I'll get them through Dave's drive around for you. They'll take care of it.
I think I saw in the president's report, John, about some naming opportunities.
Armbrust receptor. Thank you for approving that. We appreciate it.
Everything's ATC to the building.
It's exciting to be talking about it.
Sure is. A few days ago, we had the opportunity to host a member of the Regents, person or two they brought with them. It was our random turn to have an Office of Civil Rights audit. And Josh was in charge of it, working along with Peter, Andrew, and a host of other people, Neil. So I'm going to turn it over to them to let you know the outcome.
Yeah, so the Office of Civil Rights visit conducted by KBOR on behalf of the Office of Civil Rights basically had to have us put together a desk audit, which was multitude of documents, screenshots, things from the website, policies, catalogs about our discrimination policies, and the way we conduct admissions, from anything from employee hiring, et cetera. So we put together a core team of Andrew, Neil, myself, and Peter out of HR to put that together and send it off for their review. That's the part one of kind of the visit. And then they do an on-site visit where they conduct several interviews of students, employees, as well as do an extensive campus tour, both the center, Wamego Center, and our main campus. I'll turn it over to Neil here in a second, but as far as the facility side of things go, it gets complicated because depending upon when our buildings, parking lots were remodeled, they could either go by the 2010 ADA compliance standards, 1991, or the old program access prior to that. So depending on which building we were touring, it had to abide by different regulations. We're trying to bring them all up to the latest standards the best we can. But overall on the facility,
Again, just so you know.
Great.
Yeah, I just like, if you're gonna make like physical upgrades, I'm not sure on the timeline of that, but let's just do it once. So, sorry.
well, no, that's, I mean, I did think it's a bit surprising that the latest ones we have are 24 years old now. So I'm not surprised that those will be updated. However, based on what they found, we were actually in much better shape than I anticipated. It's a lot of small, non-high cost items to fix, like some transition strips and things like that into different rooms. The heights of a lot of our emergency type items like first aid kits. We had some toilet paper dispensers and things of that nature mounted too close to the handrails, really little things that are pretty easy for our facility team to address. Nothing with any high cost items for sure. There wasn't, we were concerned about some of our concrete and some of those items, but from what they looked at, they're not in as bad a shape as we had thought. Especially we're still looking at cleaning up that front entrance with the drainage issues anyway, which would replace a lot of that entrance concrete. So basically what happens next from the facility side is they'll send over an official findings document within the next 30 days. And then we'll have time to address those issues, take pictures of evidence photos, send those back to them. When that's finally all addressed, then they'll send us a closeout document, and then we consider the kind of case closed on it. So overall, it was actually a pretty positive visit. That was all just on the facility side, and then Neil and Peter specifically put together a ton of work on the policy website and those things. So Neil, you can go ahead and add to that.
Yeah, just keep it short. Obviously, the outcome of findings on that side were very limited. There's some things they found on our website in terms of inconsistency on some wording from non-discrimination policies and things of that nature. But when you have it posted 102 places, it's bound to happen that something doesn't get updated in one place or another. So working through those and then best practices, components, more so feedback on you do it and you meet the requirements this way, but here's best practice on how to do it. So a lot of those things, they also looked at some of the new policies that will be coming to you guys that are sitting with our legal, just to get their feedback prior to us obviously saying it to you so that we can get K-Board's OCR feedback in regards to those accommodations policies and things of that nature, as well as our legals, so that it's vetted. But other than that, pretty much clean bill of health. I don't think they really gave us much more than just making sure that we're following some best practice components. So,
Is there any relationship between Steve House bill and this activity?
On DEI?
Yeah, no tie whatsoever.
Yeah, as far as the selection went, they said it was mostly geographical. It just kind of was our turn. And then they do go by some, some data. If you don't show a lot of diversity in some of your student numbers or even employee hiring, et cetera, that can give you a score. But the way he made it sound is 99% of it was just geographical, and it was our turn.
I think it's like what, every 5 years, Josh? Or
Yeah.
something?
Yep. But yeah, no action or anything needed on that. Just an update, and overall pretty positive.
And actually, it's handy with our HLC accreditation review coming up. This is just more evidence that we're okay. Next item is something I forgot to do last month. We're getting ready to start negotiations with the faculty team. I'm asking for you to make a motion and approve a motion identifying myself, Carrie, and Kara as the negotiating team for the administration of the College Board of Directors. So I saw that.
Second.
Session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. I don't think anyone else is gonna volunteer for that. Default duty. Next, your other favorite annual items.
Yeah, so we put together this proposal for tuition changes for next year. We basically just based it off of the enrollment numbers from this year. Obviously didn't include summer just to kind of remain conservative, but the first column is just what it was currently this year, flat rate, and then just the next over is 5% increase, 7.5% increase, and then a 10% increase. And so you can just see basically the right column of each different colors, just the extra revenue it would generate if we go with those percentages. There would be no update to Gen Ed, we always about 1.5. And we were not going to propose an update to the credit hour fee because we did increase that last year. So that's pretty much.
Is there a recommendation from you guys?
I would, yes, I would encourage you to consider either the 7.5 or the 10%. Even though the state appropriations look good, we're anticipating enrollment to be flat or slightly less this coming fall, but the increase will come the following fall. Get all the programs.
So what, I want to make sure I understand, what's this mean to the student if we did 10%? I know, and raised 10%, but I mean, is that gonna have some kind of impact in terms of people that will involved?
Overall, most of our students have it all handled through financial aid. And with the addition of the Promise Act for several of the programs, that comes in as the last scholarship after they've addressed the Pell Grant, so that they have fewer loans. So that's picking up, that is decreasing the overall amount of loans our students are having to take. Financial aid doesn't necessarily cover 100% of the cost of every program. When we had dental hygiene, for instance, the cost of that program exceeded what it could be allowed for financial aid. So students have paid a certain amount out of pocket automatically. We have a similar issue with electric power distribution now, but that's a 1-year, certificate program with high job placement rate, high earnings. So overall, this allows us to have the one thing we can control, what we're gonna charge. We keeps us in the top half of the other tech colleges as far as cost. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest, we're just a little over halfway above.
Is that at 10% or something?
At 7.5 or 10, either way. Since I've been here, increases have never really don't affect enrollment. Yet our students are coming to get training. Unfortunately, I have to agree with the legislator that argued with me a year ago. He said, I don't want to give you guys more money. Your students do good jobs. They can afford to stay in back. But we do watch that. But then we also work, the biggest gamble this year, frankly, is something none of higher ed can control. The feds still do not have the financial aid application available for students. They're trying to launch a new one. It's a total cluster. You fill out the rest.
They are coming in.
Yeah, but they're not right. They're not right. And today, the Department of Ed moved the date back to the middle of April to have any fixes done. So more than likely, we're going to be delayed packaging financial aid, working with students on payment plans, promising not to dump them out.
So is this the FAFSA thing?
Yeah.
I saw Washburn's commercial of had students come in and dump it for free.
Yeah, and we provide assistance all the time, but it's on the federal end as far as the software. But again, I would ask either 7.5 or 10.
To, I guess, continue with John, so like, if there's a student that's just say CNA in year one or whatever program, and they're coming back year two, they're gonna see $30 increase per credit hour. So to John's question, is that an extra $1,000? Is it extra $5,000? Like what?
It depends upon the total credit hours and program that students have.
So an average, like give me a ballpark.
16 credit hours.
16 credit hours times, let's say 20.
But not all of the programs are
Yeah.
2 year, right?
No.
Some of them are 1 year.
CNA is just
It's
one.
one
Sure,
class, right,
I was like,
Well, you
okay.
got some up there that will not,
That's where we're not like universities where I can't equate that.
Right.
It affects nursing students
and but they're gonna be starting out at.
at a good wage, plus we're getting more and more employers starting to put the bill more.
Yes,
I guess I'm just like, if I'm that student, you know, I complain when my water bill goes up like $5, right? Like if I have to pay an extra $30 for, you know, credit hours, and just the shock, I guess, like.
but I don't think, I mean, who on there is 2 years? Your
Oh,
your
well-
ADM is 2, but all the others
Other
are
tech
just
is
1.
2 years.
Not very-
ADM, you're not in ADM for 2 years, you're in there for a year. So you're in.
Because you got your P
Yeah,
and then your ADM, yeah.
and
so
our
you're-
only- So INT is a 2 year.
So it'd be about.
Which is, we're not having
Okay.
students for this
I'll
fall.
take
when-
that. Still.
But we're talking like hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. or something. Correct.
Yeah,
That's where I was trying to go.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not like universities where they're increasing $8,500 a student. or
That's
something.
what I wanted to make sure we were.
Two questions. Did we do increases last year?
On fees. Not
Just
tuition.
fees, not tuition. So the last time we did
Tuition
tuition.
was 2 years ago. We try to alternate years. We're
How
not
much was
gonna-
it?
I think what, 2 years ago, did we do 10?
I think, pretty sure.
And then just commensurate with our competition.
Like I said, of the 7 tech colleges, this is like number 3. 7 on the cost. Well, let's know on the top.
And is any of this, so like the biotechnology is what we are getting ready to offer now, we don't have that yet. So those are on it.
We gotta pay for John's trash cans somehow.
Yeah.
That's nice.
John paying for his trash can.
I'm starting a business.
Inflation affects us, it's like it does everybody else.
So you're keeping the credit hour fee revenue flat. What's the last time we increased that?
2 years ago. Well, last year, when we increased fees.
And it went from what to 110?
Well, it went from, what was it? It was like 90 to 110, because we had an online credit hour fee for anyone who took an online class, they had to pay $25 for credit hour. But what we kind of realized is that all of our students are using all of the same technology, not just the online students. And so we changed that $25 rate to a $20 rate for all students. And so we changed the credit hour fee from 90 to.
Because with the pandemic, everything has an online component. But yeah, we've tried very few times to raise both tuition and fees at the same time. But okay.
What's K-State credit hour?
7 times up.
Last I looked, I think it was like 60 for in-state. Is it one? Thought it was a little
Yes. I was doing that credit.
As far as just a comment on the fees, we've always kind of had a gap to plug, and it just seems like this last year by adding that technology fee and Kara, speak up if I'm wrong, but it seems like this year, it seems like it's came out about better than normal, where there wasn't many gaps to fill as far as the fees, pertain a lot to security services, IT services, facility, things of that nature. And it seems like this year with the fee where it's at, we've came out at a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
absolutely.
You guys know what your total credit hours for this year is gonna be?
I think we're around 8,000 is what we estimated. And that doesn't include high school, since we don't. That fee. I think it was a little bit higher this year. I think it was closer to 9, but we left it at 8 just to keep it.
So with excellency to get the money we do get from the state for that, it's supposed to be tuition.
So your 8,000 number is on the low side.
Yeah, and it's not.
Remind me again, when did these last go up? Last year?
2 years.
2 years. So this would hopefully be.
I mean, what we're looking at is we're raising tuition 5% a year, but we're doing it every other year, so it's 10%.
Well, I don't want to get a long discussion. Sometimes I'd like to say, why we still do 5% a year. But we don't need to do that. It's more psychological than.
We do it every year rather than.
Again, for most of our students, they don't know.
Seeing one.
It seems to me if we're gonna do it, then it's 10%.
Only student body that really sees that transition is our students, because they start in spring and January with us under one, and then they come back to us. See that transition. Costs.
Which students?
Alignment.
PD students.
Walking into a job at 65 days, so say, if they're not more.
Is there a motion?
That we approve the proposed tuition change, adopting the option for presented the 10% increase.
Any last discussion? Is there a second?
Second.
2 seconds.
Second and a third.
All in favor of approving tuition change option 4, say aye.
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 Thank you. President's report, you've got it there to read. Again, we're doing a lot of tours here, and we've got more coming up. In the middle of the K-Board meeting last week in Topeka, I get an email from one of the legislative staffers asking me to submit testimony by the end of this week and make myself available next Wednesday from noon to 1:30 to the subcommittee on contract nursing. But they want the testimony of the tech colleges on how what we can do about the nursing shortage.
Yeah, you're gonna fix it?
Well, we have worked with George at the chamber. Kind of a business case to get back out to the healthcare providers around here about some things that they help us on how we can increase more CNA students, and also the big thing on the RN side is the cost for that MSN qualified student. They have to have that master's in nursing to teach the RNs. And the pay gap between what we can afford versus what they make in the real world is getting bigger and bigger. But at the same time, I've talked with all the tech college leaders and leaders from the community colleges about trying to collaborate on some of the healthcare things. And we've had some follow-up discussion with Kansas Health Institute, with State Board of Nursing. So in my testimony, we're going to mention some of those things about collaboration. One of them would be if we had some funding from different sources where we could, 3 or 4 of us together, to hire an expert on the sim lab curriculum. Every nursing program has simulation labs, and under the rules of the game, we can go 50% of the clinical experience can be done in a simulation lab, which would reduce the stress on the hospitals. So if we could optimize that, like with some good qualified sim lab teachers that we could share so that curriculum becomes consistent and the outcomes for one are consistent. To me, that's kind of the low-hanging common sense fruit to attack that issue and start building that collaboration between the 2 year colleges. The other thing is, I'll try to keep this one short. The universities on the Math Pathways project from the state regents are pushing to get really tight. They don't want to say, they don't think intermediate algebra is legitimate anymore, basically. Of course, on the other hand, when you look at K-12, the state school board would not put in a 4th year of math. So high school students can be done with math their junior year, big gap, and then the universities want to go college algebra and no remediation, make it or break it. And I get both. I mean, I understand the logic from both sides. The bad thing is, and I brought this up with the regents last week, we're making that gap even worse. And I told one of the regents flat out, you and I both know when those things happen, you guys all look at the 2 year colleges to fix the problem. So don't tie our hands. I brought up, you know, in the tech programs, for the most part, our students have to take tech math 1 and 2. You want that student we send to you to be able to use a tape measure. You can care less about algebra. That comes later. Those would help. Gotta be able to do that first. So we're working on some ideas because we know we're gonna be asked more and more, how do we address that at that high school level without adding a bunch of developmental? We've been fortunate with Brian's help of using those recitation labs, but that's even included in intermediate algebra. And intermediate is the math requirement for PM nursing. So I reminded the regent staff of that. You just can't go change that on your own. That's got to go through State Board of Nursing. So there's a couple of issues there that are popping up. Budget looks good. We're giving a proposal put together now for the tech college presidents. We're all going to meet in June to hammer out the next leg of the performance funding. We're looking at some of the traditional things we do, but we're also looking at a concept a few other colleges and the 2 year colleges in the nation are using related to accelerated skills centers. How can we get some people possibly through the pipeline quicker or do reskilling more quickly? Again, a combination of on-the-job training, apprenticeships, internships, all sorts of modifications, but it seems to be receptive in certain levels of the legislature. So those are those things. The rest of the report, I think, is pretty straightforward.
I was happy to see you had some big players come over and see the new facilities. That's great.
We're getting more and more coming over, and you know, we're gonna have the ribbon cutting the end of August. We're gonna be giving quite a few tours this summer, kind of some special folks. You know, the 2 biggest donors per se at this point in time are the state of Kansas and the city of Manhattan. But then we've got several folks at that $250,000 level that DHS wants construction named after them. Carl and Mary Ice want the Industrial Engineering Tech Lab. Steel Pipe, Jack Goldstein Trust want the conference room named after them. Mary Veneer picked the computer lab classroom.
Nice.
we're continuing to work on more funding on that. That answer any questions? Overall, it's been a pretty good year for the technologies.
The meeting with Matt Charlton and the new city manager, just
Yeah.
what was your 2 cents on what you're looking for?
Well. You know, I talked quite a bit about how the city has supported this in the past, but again, the fact that we keep a lot of our graduates here, so the city, you know, that investment, but how do we start working with the cities and counties? And Chris and I are working on, along with Harry, how do we start having those conversations at those municipal county levels with their HR people and start setting up internships or possibly apprenticeships? I think if we can do that with a few of them, that will help them help us more. It kind of opens up the way why they can support us. But I also mentioned to this person, to me, the scariest thing of all is how fast are we going to be able to adapt to the changes with AI that affect how your workers are going to get the work done? And how do we do that training? And it's going to be at light speed, I think, in every occupation. So again, working with the tech colleges, community colleges, trying to work back through advisory committees to do a kind of a survey to get feedback from people. One of the cool questions I got, not from the consultant at the city, but somebody else recently. Well, who in Manhattan's already using AI? Well, we're not that far behind people. Manco's been using it for a long time. And Brett told us it's already changed how their workers get the job done. Well, we've got to know that. So we're not teaching skills that AI is doing. We're teaching skills that the person has to know AI does. And I'm picking up from here. But we've got to get that feedback so we can make those changes. The other two linchpins I mentioned to that, but I've also mentioned as far as with the legislatures, the foundations with us, healthcare everywhere in the state, but the cybersecurity. So basically, how good is your healthcare for your community? How good is your data safety? Because if you get hacked, your business could go out of business. So we have some opportunities coming up addressing those things. And speaking of AI,
Sorry, can you guys see that?
yeah,
You made me think about playing with some of Zoom's new AI stuff. I didn't realize you could see what I was clicking. Continue.
You know, there's no way to be on the cutting edge of it, but again, at least with basic skills, what do our students have to know? I also see it may really help us in terms of working with the high school kids and adult ed kids on ramping up again, where the ones could accelerate. How do we help them do that? But for every positive with AI, there's 2 negatives. So balancing. Tomorrow, I'm doing the one-on-one with Chambers Economic Development Consultant.
Yes.
We have a couple exec sessions that won't involve some of the folks here. But Mike, before they all leave.
So it's my last meeting. This spring and summer, I am transitioning into what I describe as semi-retirement. And so that means sort of an inventory of all of my commitments, time commitments, and making some new decisions. And it has nothing at all to do with the mission and vision and goal of MATC. You guys know I'm a proud technical college graduate myself. And so it has everything to do with just time management, expectations of my wife and trying to support her in her job at this point. So I will miss working with you guys, but it's just sort of a transition in life as you get older. I can't stop that. I tried, but I couldn't stop that. So I look forward to either, so I'm sure I'll see you all in the community still, but this will be my last meeting. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
Thank you much for your time.
Yeah.
We do need you to come back for a tour of the building.
Be delighted. Thank you.
Thank you. You bet.
Maybe write it, write some opinion.
You do that too, yeah. Yeah, I will, I can't talk about it out loud yet, but I'll have some side hustles that And you guys know I write the column for the Mercury, and so I'm doing some I'm engaged in some conversations with Ned Seaton about maybe expanding that role. They also own and broadcasting, and I'll just quit talking. There's nothing's real yet, but it could get there.
If we can be of help, or if you can plug us in.
I'm confident we will have this conversation. Thank you.
Like to do the first session on